I remember the exact moment everything inside me went quiet. Not loud, not explosive, just silent. I was sitting on a thin folding mattress wedged between towers of cardboard boxes in a room that had no windows, no sunlight, and no real air. The kind of space that wasn't meant for living, only for storing things people didn't care about anymore. That's when I heard her. Clear as day. Her voice came through the smart speaker sitting on a dusty shelf. One of those devices my son had once set up for me so I could feel connected. Funny how things change. That old woman is nothing but a burden. Tell her to keep quiet or we'll just put her in a nursing home. I didn't move. Didn't react. Didn't cry. Because when something breaks that deeply, tears don't come right away. They get stuck somewhere inside your chest like glass. 6 months earlier I had handed over everything. My home. My savings. My sense of security. All of it. I had lived in that house for over 30 years. Every corner held a memory. My husband's laughter, my son's childhood, quiet mornings with tea by the window. Selling it felt like tearing pages out of my own life. But I did it willingly. Because my son Javier stood there on those front steps, holding me like he used to when he was little, his voice soft and emotional. Mom, you shouldn't be alone anymore. Come live with us. We'll take care of you. And I believed him. That's the dangerous thing about love. It doesn't question enough. After selling the house and settling everything, I was left with around $380,000. I gave them $300,000. Not as a gift, not exactly. It was understood. Spoken clearly, even if not loudly. In exchange, I would have a place to live. A secure space for the rest of my life. A room of my own. Dignity. That was the deal. At least that's what I thought. The first day I arrived at their new house, everything looked perfect. Bright walls. Clean floors. A sense of new beginnings. My daughter-in-law, Sophie, walked me through the home with a polite smile, the kind that looks warm from a distance but feels cold up close. She showed me my room. It was beautiful. Soft curtains. A comfortable bed. A chair by the window where sunlight poured in. This is yours, she said. I remember thinking maybe I made the right choice. Maybe this stage of life wouldn't be so lonely after all. Then she added, just for a few days though, we need you to stay downstairs. There's some plumbing work left unfinished here. Few days. That's what she said. Those few days turned into 6 months. The room downstairs wasn't a room. It was storage. No windows. No ventilation. Bare concrete walls. Boxes everywhere, most of them not even mine. Inventory for Sophie's online business filled the space. Clothes, cosmetics, packaging materials. My belongings were squeezed into whatever gaps remained. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself not to complain. I told myself old people shouldn't be difficult. That's how it starts. Not with cruelty, but with silence. On the second night, Sophie came down holding something in her hand. A keypad lock. We're installing this for safety, she said casually. Emma runs around a lot. We can't risk her getting into the storage. I stared at the lock. You're locking this door? You can open it from the inside, she replied quickly. It's just precaution. I looked past her. Javier was standing behind her. Quiet. Avoiding my eyes. Just temporary, Mom, he said. Temporary. That word again. Pain doesn't always hit you like a storm. Sometimes it settles slowly like pressure. Like something heavy sitting on your chest, making it harder to breathe with each passing day. First, they still brought me food. Javier would come down in the evenings with a plate. Hang in there, Mom. Things are tight right now. By the second week, it became irregular. By the third week, it stopped. Not forgotten. Stopped. There's a difference. I adapted. What else was I supposed to do? I found an old portable hot plate in my suitcase, the kind my husband and I used during road trips years ago. I started making simple meals. Oatmeal. Soup. Boiled water. The electrical outlet sparked sometimes when I plugged it in. I knew it wasn't safe. But neither was starving. One afternoon, I went upstairs while no one was home. The door to my room was slightly open. I pushed it gently. And that's when I saw the truth. The bed was gone. The chair was gone. Everything that made it feel like a home gone. In its place. Studio lights. A backdrop. Shelves filled with products. A neon sign on the wall. Sophie Collective. I stood there for a long time. Long enough for something inside me to finally understand. That room was never meant for me. It was bait. That night they invited me to dinner. Not out of kindness. Because a guest was visiting. I sat at the table quietly while Sophie talked nonstop. About expenses, pressure, how hard life was. I listened. Then I asked one simple question. When will I move into my room? Silence. Then irritation. Then anger. You think everything revolves around you? Sophie snapped. I looked at her steadily. Where is my $300,000? That's when the atmosphere changed completely. Cold. Sharp. Dangerous. Javier tried to calm things down. Mom, not in front of Emma. But Sophie didn't stop. That money went into this house. You live here too. I sleep in a storage room. It's temporary. It's been 6 months. I turned to my son. You agree with her? He didn't answer right away. Then he said the one thing that ended something inside me. I just want peace. Peace. At the cost of truth. At the cost of me. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Listening to sounds above me. Tape ripping, footsteps, laughter. A house full of life. And me hidden underneath it. Like something that didn't belong. 3 days later my mail started disappearing. First I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw Sophie opening one of my letters. It's from my bank, I said. If it affects the household we should know, she replied calmly. From that day on it became routine. My privacy didn't exist anymore. Then came the next demand. You'll be contributing 70% of your pension toward utilities. I almost laughed. Show me the bills. Her smile faded. You don't trust us? I trust numbers. That's when the threats started. Subtle at first. You know how cold winters get. Heating costs money. Maybe we need to cut back. That night I didn't sleep. Something wasn't right. Something deeper than disrespect. Something dangerous. So the next morning, I made a phone call. And what I learned on that call changed everything. The next morning I didn't wait for courage. At my age you learn something important. Courage doesn't always show up first. Sometimes you act first. And let courage catch up later. I sat on the edge of that thin mattress, phone in my hand, staring at the number for my bank. My fingers felt stiff like they didn't quite belong to me. For a moment, I almost put the phone down. Almost told myself I was overthinking. Almost chose peace over truth. But something inside me, something quiet but firm, refused to let that happen. So I dialed. The woman on the other end had a calm, practiced voice. Good morning. How can I assist you today? I went through the usual verification. Name. Date of birth. Security questions. My voice sounded steady. Stronger than I felt. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest all night. Has there been any unusual activity on my account recently? There was a pause. Not long. But long enough. Yes, ma'am. There were 2 attempted transactions flagged earlier this month. My stomach tightened. What kind of transactions? Large withdrawals. They were blocked pending additional verification. The room felt smaller. How large? The first was for $40,000. The second was for $12,000. For a second, I couldn't speak. 40,000. 12,000. Not small mistakes. Not misunderstandings. Deliberate. Who initiated them? I asked, though I already knew. Another pause. Then, the authorized individual listed on your account. Javier Harlow. It's a strange thing. Hearing betrayal confirmed out loud. Part of you already knows. But when someone else says it clearly, officially, it lands differently. Heavier. Final. I thanked the woman and ended the call. Then I just sat there. The phone still in my hand. My son. My own son. Trying to take money from the one account I had left. The emergency fund meant to carry me through the last years of my life. I thought about him as a boy. Scraped knees. School projects. Late-night fevers. All the versions of him I had loved without question. And then I thought about the man upstairs. The one who stood silent while his wife locked me in a storage room. The one who had just tried to quietly drain my savings. And for the first time, I stopped trying to connect those two people. By 5 a.m. the next morning I was dressed. Not in anything fancy. Just the cleanest, most presentable clothes I had left. I gathered my documents, everything I could find. Bank papers. ID. Copies of old forms. Then I left. No note. No explanation. No permission. The cold air outside hit my face like a wake-up call. The kind that tells you this is real. That things have already gone too far. I took a cab across the city, watching buildings blur past the window. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. I looked older than I felt, and somehow clearer. At the bank, I sat across from a woman who didn't smile unnecessarily. She listened. Really listened. That alone felt strange. After months of being dismissed, talked over, or ignored, having someone simply pay attention felt almost unfamiliar. "You want to revoke the power of attorney?" she asked. "Yes." Immediately. "Yes. Are you concerned about financial exploitation?" I didn't hesitate this time. "Yes." The word hung in the air. Heavy, but correct. Within 30 minutes, everything changed. The power of attorney was gone. The joint account was closed. Every dollar was moved into a new account under my name alone. New security codes. New restrictions. New boundaries. The kind I should have set from the beginning. When I walked out of that bank, my legs felt weak. Not from fear. From the weight of what I had just done. There's a strange kind of grief that comes with protecting yourself from your own child. No one prepares you for it. I sat on a bench outside for a while. People passed by like any other day. Normal life continuing. While mine had just shifted. Completely. When I got back to the house, everything looked the same. But it didn't feel the same. Not anymore. Less than an hour later, the door to the storage room slammed open. Hard enough to shake the walls. Javier stood there, breathing heavily. His face flushed with anger. "What did you do?" I looked up at him calmly. "You're talking to your mother." "The bank called me." "You revoked everything. You moved all the money." "Yes." "You think I'm stealing from you?" I held his gaze. "You tried to withdraw $40,000. He flinched. Just slightly. But I saw it. That wasn't what it looked like. "Then explain it." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a trapped animal. "I was going to put it back. We're under pressure right now, things are tight." "And the other 12,000? Same thing. Just temporary." "Temporary." That word again. I let out a small dry laugh. "You lie badly, Javier." His expression cracked. For a moment I saw something close to panic. Then just as quickly it shifted. Into something else. Something familiar. "You never trust me," he said quietly. "Not really." There it was. The reversal. The guilt. The attempt to make me the problem. For years that tactic had worked. This time it didn't. I lowered my eyes slightly. Softened my voice. "I'm sorry." He froze. The tension in his shoulders eased instantly. Relief flooded his face. "I just wanted to help the family," he said, almost gently now. "I know," I replied. "From now on, I'll handle my own finances." He nodded. Patted my shoulder. Like he was the one in control again. "Get some rest, Mom. Let's not make this bigger than it is." Then he left. The door closed. And something inside me became very, very still. I reached under the mattress and pulled out the metal box. It was small. Old. Unremarkable. Unless you knew what was inside. I opened it slowly. Papers. Photographs. And one document folded carefully. Untouched. Forgotten. Or so he believed. The promissory note. Signed. Legal. Binding. My husband had insisted on it years ago. "If you ever lend money, even to family, put it in writing," he used to say. Love is emotional. Paper is protection. At the time I had felt it was unnecessary. Harsh even. But he had been firm. Now, that piece of paper was the only thing standing between me and complete ruin. I ran my fingers over the signature. Javier's name. Clear. Undeniable. Upstairs I could hear movement. Voices. Normal life continuing. As if nothing had changed. But everything had. They just didn't know it yet. Because this wasn't about arguing anymore. Or asking. Or hoping things would improve. This was about something else entirely. Planning. And for the first time in 6 months, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. After that day at the bank, I stopped trying to fix things. I stopped explaining. Stopped expecting fairness. Stopped hoping my son would suddenly remember who I was to him. Hope, I realized, had been the most expensive thing I'd given away, and I was done paying for it. Instead, I started watching. Quietly. Carefully. The way people do when they finally understand they're not safe. Sophie changed first. Not in obvious ways. She didn't come downstairs yelling or demanding money anymore. No, she got smarter than that. Colder. She started building a story. One morning, my reading glasses disappeared. I searched every corner of that cramped room. Boxes, bags under the mattress. Nothing. Hours later, Sophie came downstairs holding them between her fingers. "You left these upstairs," she said casually. Emma almost stepped on them. "I didn't go upstairs," I replied. She tilted her head slightly. "You forgot." That word again. Forgot. 2 days later, it was my medication. Gone. Not misplaced. Gone. I tore through everything, my hands shaking, my heart racing. When Javier came home, Sophie spoke before I could. "I'm worried about your mom," she said, her voice soft with practiced concern. "She's starting to leave important things around. Medicine, glasses. What if Emma gets into something?" Javier looked at me. Not with anger. Not even confusion. With doubt. That hurt more than anything. "You're hiding my things," I said. Sophie laughed. A light, dismissive sound. "Listen to yourself." That was the moment I understood her plan. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about control. If she could make me look unstable, confused, unreliable, then anything they did would be justified. And suddenly everything made sense. The missing items. The open mail. The subtle comments. The pressure. They weren't just pushing me out. They were building a case. That night I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling. Thinking. Replaying every moment. Every word. Every shift in behavior. And then slowly, an idea formed. If they wanted a confused old woman, I would give them one. But on my terms. The next morning I started small. Harmless things. I asked what day it was twice. Then again an hour later. I put a spoon in the knife drawer and muttered to myself. "Oh dear. I must be getting forgetful." I called Emma's school by the wrong name. Repeated a story I had already told. Each time I watched Sophie's reaction. And each time, her eyes lit up. Not with concern. With satisfaction. She thought she was winning. That gave me exactly what I needed. Access. Freedom to observe without being questioned. Freedom to gather what I needed in plain sight. Because people underestimate you when they think you're weak. And that is a dangerous mistake. I started documenting everything. Times. Dates. Words. Behavior. Every insult. Every threat. Every suspicious action. I wrote it all down in a small notebook I kept hidden inside my pillow. But I needed more than notes. I needed proof. Something undeniable. That's when I remembered the old tablet. Javier had set it up months ago, back when things still looked normal. It was synced with the house system, voice assistant, smart devices, everything. I hadn't used it in weeks. Maybe months. That night I turned it on. The screen flickered to life slowly. Old notifications. Missed reminders. Nothing important. Then I found it. Settings. Device history. Audio logs. My heart started beating faster. I tapped one. And her voice filled the room. Clear. Sharp. Unfiltered. "That old woman is nothing but a freeloader. Tell her to shut up or we'll dump her somewhere." I froze. Even though I had already heard it once. Hearing it again, knowing it was recorded, felt different. Stronger. Real. I scrolled through more clips. Played another. And another. Javier's voice came through this time. Lower. Uneasy. "That might be going too far." Sophie's reply came fast. Cold. "Then you choose. Either she goes, or we lose everything." My hands trembled slightly. Not from fear. From clarity. I kept listening. One recording mentioned something that made my stomach turn. "We just need enough proof she's losing it. Then we can get control legally." Control. Another clip. "Is there a cheap way to put her in a public facility without draining us?" That was Javier. I closed my eyes. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe properly. This wasn't frustration. This wasn't stress. This was a plan. And I was the target. Slowly, I reached under the mattress again and pulled out the metal box. Opened it. Looked at the promissory note. Then back at the tablet. Paper. Proof. Evidence. For the first time since all of this began, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear. Not sadness. Control. But I wasn't ready yet. Not fully. I needed someone outside this house. Someone who understood numbers. Documents. Consequences. And I knew exactly who that was. Arthur Bell. An old neighbor. A retired auditor. A man who trusted paperwork more than people. The kind of man who didn't get fooled easily. I made an excuse the next day. Said I had a doctor's appointment. Javier drove me to the station without asking questions. Sophie barely looked up from her phone. Perfect. From there, I took a cab to a small diner Arthur used to visit regularly. Same place. Same time. Some people never change their habits. When I walked in, he looked up from his coffee and frowned immediately. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. "I've been living in one," I replied. He didn't laugh. He just gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit. Start talking." And I did. Everything. No drama. No exaggeration. Just facts. From the money to the room to the recordings. He listened without interrupting. Didn't soften anything. Didn't rush me. When I finished, I placed the promissory note on the table. He adjusted his glasses and read every line carefully. Slowly. Thoroughly. Then he looked up. "This is valid," he said. "Legally binding. Secured. Recorded." My chest tightened slightly. "So they can't ignore it?" "No," he replied. "And if they try to sell that house, you get paid first. Or close to it, depending on priority." I sat back. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't standing on the edge anymore. Arthur leaned back in his chair. "You know what you're holding?" he asked. "What?" "The only leverage in this entire situation." Leverage. Such a simple word. But it changed everything. Then he said something else. Something I hadn't expected. "Now you stop reacting and start building your case." I nodded slowly, because that's exactly what I had already started doing. Now, I knew I was on the right path. Once you stop reacting emotionally, everything becomes clearer. That's what changed after my meeting with Arthur. I stopped feeling like a victim and started thinking like someone building a case. Every move mattered now. Every word. Every reaction. Back in that storage room, I continued playing my role. The forgetful old woman. The confused mother. The one slowly losing her mind. And Sophie? She leaned into it. Hard. She stopped hiding her tone when Javier wasn't around. "You need to accept reality," she said one afternoon, arms crossed. "People your age don't stay independent forever." I lowered my eyes, letting my voice tremble. "I just want to stay close to my son." She gave a cold smile. "Your son has a life. This whole house can't revolve around you." Every word. Recorded. I kept the tablet hidden, audio logs syncing quietly. I added timestamps in my notebook every night. Built patterns. Documented behavior. Because one recording can be denied. A pattern cannot. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. Not planned exactly, but perfectly timed. One afternoon Sophie was live streaming. That cheerful, fake tone filled the house. "Hey girls, welcome back. Today we've got something special." I was told to clean her studio, the room that was supposed to be mine. I carried a bucket upstairs. Moved slowly, carefully. The camera was on. I could see the small indicator light. And more importantly, I knew she often left a secondary angle running. A side feed. I started wiping the floor. Then, I slipped. The bucket tipped. Water splashed across the sofa and part of the rug. Sophie's reaction was instant. Explosive. "What is wrong with you?" I flinched, stepping back. I'm sorry." "Sorry? That sofa costs more than everything you own." Her voice got louder, sharper, more real. And then it happened. "Why don't you just die already so this house has one less problem?" Silence. For half a second. Maybe less. Then panic. She turned toward the camera too late. Scrambling. Trying to shut it down. But it was done. You don't need a full recording. You don't need context. Sometimes, one sentence is enough. That night, I sent the timestamp to Arthur. His reply came quickly. Good. Now we escalate. And that's exactly what I did. I had already taken photos of the storage room, the blocked exits, the unsafe wiring, the hot plate, the lack of ventilation. Now I made a call. Anonymous. Simple. Clear. There's an elderly person living in an unsafe storage space. That's all it took. 2 weeks later, the doorbell rang. I opened it. 2 officials stood outside. Serious. Focused. We received a report about a non-compliant living situation. Behind me I heard movement. Sophie rushing. Trying to fix her expression. Oh, this must be a misunderstanding, she said quickly, forcing a smile. The inspector didn't smile back. I'd like to see the lower level. I led them downstairs. The moment they stepped inside, everything changed. They didn't need explanations. They didn't need stories. They saw it. The cramped space. The blocked pathways. The exposed wiring. The absence of windows. And me. Standing there. Living in it. The inspector's voice turned cold. This is not a habitable space. Sophie started talking rapidly. It's temporary, we're renovating. The inspector cut her off. My dog wouldn't sleep here. Silence. Heavy. Final. A red notice was placed on the door. Violation. Immediate action required. Javier arrived halfway through. Confused. Panicked. What's going on? The inspector didn't hesitate. What's going on is that you've been housing an elderly person in unsafe conditions. No shouting. No drama. Just facts. And facts are harder to escape than accusations. That was only the beginning. Later that same day, another letter arrived. HOA complaints. Too much inventory. Too much activity. Improper use of the property. Sophie lost control. Who reported us? Javier snapped back. You're running a business out of the house. What did you expect? Their voices rose. Anger turning inward now. Blame shifting. Cracks forming. I sat quietly downstairs. Listening. For the first time in months. I wasn't afraid of the noise. 'Cause this time, it wasn't directed at me. That evening, Javier came down holding papers. His face looked different. Desperate. Mom, I need your help. I stayed still. What kind of help? It's just paperwork. Temporary. We need to stabilize things. I didn't take the papers. What kind of paperwork? He hesitated. Life insurance adjustment. Just for collateral. I'll change it back later. I looked at him. Really looked. Even now. After everything. He still thought I would say yes. Slowly, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a document. A simple medical form. Routine. Harmless. I placed it in front of him. The doctor says I have cognitive decline, I said softly. He froze. My accounts are being monitored. I can't sign anything legally. His face drained of color. What since when? I tilted my head slightly. I thought I told you. That did it. Fear replaced desperation. 'Cause now, the situation had changed. If I was officially vulnerable, then everything they had done could be investigated. He backed away. Literally. One step. That told me everything. That night their argument was worse than ever. You idiot. Why did you let her go alone? How was I supposed to know? We needed her to sign things before this happened. Then the truth came out. Debt. Real debt. Loans. Credit cards. Missed payments. This house is going into foreclosure. The words hit the air like a crack. I sat in the dark. Listening. Understanding. I was never the burden. I was the backup plan. The last resource. The final piece they hadn't taken yet. And now, that door was closed. The next morning Sophie stormed downstairs. This is your fault. I looked at her calmly. What did I do? You reported us. You mess with everything. I've been living here for 6 months. If you don't like it, leave. She threw a box across the room. My photos spilled out. Frames cracked. Something inside me tightened. But I didn't react. Instead, I pressed one button on my phone. Quietly. Connection established. She kept yelling. Didn't notice. Didn't stop. You're a parasite. You ruin everything. Then I spoke. Clearly. The police are listening. She went silent. 20 minutes later, they arrived. And this time, everything changed for good. When the police walked into that room, something shifted permanently. Not just in the house. In me. For months I had been shrinking. Adjusting. Enduring. Trying not to make things worse. Trying not to cause trouble. But trouble had already been built around me. Layer by layer. Lie by lie. Now it was being peeled back. In front of witnesses. In front of the law. The officers didn't rush. They didn't shout. They observed. The room. The conditions. The red violation notice. The scattered belongings from the box Sophie had thrown. Then they listened. To me. Do you feel unsafe here? One officer asked gently. Yes. Has anyone tried to control your finances or documents? Yes. Has anyone threatened or pressured you to leave? Yes. Simple answers. Clear. Undeniable. Sophie tried to interrupt. This is ridiculous. She's confused. She doesn't understand. The officer turned to her. You don't need to raise your voice. That was the first time I saw something crack in Sophie. Not anger. Fear. Because this wasn't a private argument anymore. This was official. The recordings helped. The audio logs. The recent call. Her own words. People think abuse has to look physical. Doesn't. Sometimes it's control. Pressure. Isolation. Financial manipulation. And the law knows the difference. By the time the officers finished, the outcome was already clear. Sophie was escorted out. Handcuffed. Still arguing. Still trying to twist the story. Javier stood there. Frozen. Watching. He didn't step forward. Didn't defend her. Didn't defend me. He just stood there. Like he had for months. The door closed behind them. And for the first time in a long time, the house went quiet. Not tense quiet. Not fearful quiet. Just quiet. That night I didn't go back downstairs. I walked upstairs slowly. Each step felt unfamiliar. Like I was walking into a place I didn't belong. But I kept going. Into the living room. I turned on the light. Then the heat. Sat down on the same sofa that had caused so much shouting. And I made myself a cup of tea. My hands trembled. Not from fear. From the shock of normalcy. 6 months. 6 months without light, comfort, or dignity. Now, it was all within reach again. But something inside me had changed. This wasn't home anymore. Not really. It was just a place where something ended. The next morning, reality moved quickly. Javier bailed Sophie out. But she couldn't return. The protective order made that clear. They argued outside. Loud enough for neighbors to hear. Blame going back and forth. Accusations. Regret. Panic. Then came the decision. They had to sell the house. Not a choice. A necessity. Debt had caught up with them. The violations. The pressure. The truth. Everything was collapsing at once. And this time, I wasn't underneath it. I was outside of it. Arthur called me as soon as the listing went live. They're moving fast, he said. Trying to cut losses. And the note? I asked. Still valid, he replied. And very important. That's when he said something simple. But crucial. You need to be there. So I went. Not alone. Arthur came. And a lawyer. Someone who knew exactly how to speak when it mattered. We walked into that office together. Calm. Prepared. Javier was already there. Pen in hand. Trying to hold everything together. When he saw me, his face changed. Mom. What are you doing here? I didn't answer. The lawyer did. He placed the promissory note on the table. Carefully. Deliberately. This debt must be settled before any proceeds are distributed. Silence. The room shifted. The realtor looked at the document. Then at Javier. This is recorded, Arthur added. Javier sank back into his chair. You kept it, he said quietly. I met his eyes. You thought I didn't? Sophie tried to intervene. Angry. Desperate. This is revenge. No, Arthur said calmly. This is documentation. That difference matters. A lot. Then came the final push. Evidence. Recordings. Screenshots. Documentation of behavior. Everything laid out. Not emotionally. Factually. That's what makes it powerful. Sophie's online campaign collapsed quickly after that. Reports. Flags. Questions. Truth doesn't need much time once it's exposed. The sale went through. Not at the price they wanted. But enough. The bank took its share. Debt was cleared. And my portion was honored. Not completely. But enough. Enough to stand on my own again. That was all I needed. At the very end, Javier broke. He dropped to his knees. Right there. Mom, please. Cancel the note. No one spoke. The room was silent. I looked at him. Really looked. And for a moment, I saw the boy he used to be. Then I heard the recordings in my mind. And I remembered everything. You called me a burden, I said quietly. No anger. No shouting. Just truth. Now live with your choices. That was it. No dramatic ending. No forgiveness speech. No emotional reunion. Just a line drawn. Clear. Permanent. After that, I left. I moved into a small apartment. Quiet. Simple. 1 bedroom. 1 window. Plenty of light. It wasn't big. But it was mine. No one touched my things. No one opened my mail. No one questioned my decisions. Peace felt unfamiliar at first. Then it felt necessary. I set up new legal protections. New accounts. New boundaries. The kind I should have had from the start. Javier reached out a few times. Messages. Apologies. I answered politely. But briefly. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed. Months passed. I built a routine. Met new people. Found small joys again. Sunlight in the morning. Tea in the afternoon. Silence at night. The kind of silence that heals. One day Javier came to see me. Not to ask for money. Not to argue. Just to return something. His father's watch. I held it in my hand. Felt its weight. Thank you, I said. He nodded. Didn't ask for anything. Didn't expect anything. And for the first time, I saw something honest in him. Regret. But regret doesn't undo actions. Just follows them. He left. And I went back upstairs. To my small apartment. To my quiet life. To my freedom. Because in the end, I didn't just get money back. I got something far more important. Control. Dignity. And the understanding that love, without boundaries, is just permission for someone else to take everything.